everybody, welcome to episode 3 of Swing to the Rhythm. My name is Gilbert, Raya, your host. This is Damon, your co-host for our brand new show. We want to thank everybody for tuning in to episode 1 and episode 2. In the first episode, we discussed the benefits of dance, and in episode 2, we discussed a little bit about dance history, and we discussed the difference between West Coast swing and modern swing. In episode 3 today, we're going to discuss a little bit about D'Amico Dance, what we offer as a business. You don't want to miss this. Stay tuned throughout the entire episode. So Damon, D'Amico Dance has been in business for about 40 years, and we offer group lessons and private lessons to the community. We're bringing the benefits of dance to the public. Your dance journey happened very quickly and simultaneously.
Correct.
But for some people, they have talent and they start out as a dancer and then they start to transition over time just based on their desire to dance and to teach and to help others. They start to develop into a dance instructor.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
I answered an ad in the paper for a dance studio, so I became a teacher and then built my skills, when it came to couples dance, right? So I did that backwards. And of course, I was going through teacher training and doing all of that stuff because I didn't have that under my belt, so I wasn't prepared to be a teacher. And I started out, of course, as what they called a front-end instructor or a journeyman instructor, and they only put brand new people on me until I tested out of particular steps through a syllabus, and then I earned my stripes and worked my way up. And then, of course, transitioned over to country dancing and the more social dance styles, West Coast swing, and so on and so forth. And so what we're seeing today, there is so much talent out there. I mean, there really is. I want to give kudos to all of the dancers out there. I mean, I'm amazed. I know you are too. Yep. I'm amazed, and I'm not sure exactly whose tutelage they're under or if they're under any, because I see some of these people coming up that aren't necessarily working with a coach or a pro or a particular school of thought, right? The breakdown there happens when we see that a lot of these super duper talented dancers don't necessarily make the greatest instructors starting out. This is not a dig. Take offense if you want, you know me. But this is not a dig. You have to earn your stripes. So it's one thing to be a really great dancer. It's completely something else to be a great teacher. I use the Tiger Woods analogy all the time. Butch Harmon was his golf coach forever. Can Butch beat him on the golf course?
Not even close. Not
even close. But he could get him to the right place, and that's why I consider myself to be a coach. And I tell you, I say this too, if I can't make you a better dancer than me, get a new coach. You know what I'm saying? This is not about me praising me. This is about me having a passion and the skills and the tools and the system for creating champion dancers, which we've created several, including yourself. I mean, you're amongst the high ranks in WSDC, and so it's like, and also letting people have the freedom to dance the way, they want. That's a completely different topic, right? Like, we're not trying to make robots that dance just like me. Hopefully they're a mixture of all of the pro dancers out there, and I have the ability to explain the difference between this style, that style, the other style, which gets each of our students to a different, unique look of their own because their dial is set on a different number of this pro that they like. Maybe it's Max Hans, maybe it's Kyle, maybe it's Jordan, maybe it's Tebow, whoever it is, right? So it's like, oh, well, here's how they achieve that look. Well, that's what you have to be able to do as a teacher. I really wish that these up-and-coming dancers, when they start getting the bug to teach, that they would decide on a particular method, that they would have have multiple coaches. But when it comes to basics, I think you really would do yourself a service if you would subscribe to a particular method when it comes to basics. And then you can always pepper in all of the other stuff, especially once you get people beyond that newcomer, beginner level, because that's when they're ready to receive the information, the variation, the styling variation, the timing changes, that sort of thing. But there's a natural progression. And events are somewhat over a barrel. In case y'all don't know it, dance events don't make a whole lot of money. I've been an event owner several times, and it's like after you pay the staff and all the instructors and everything else, it's like there's not a whole lot of money left over. So part of the issue I find is that whoever the hottest couple is at the moment, they may not even be interested in being teachers, but the event can't necessarily hire the hottest trending couple and the best teachers because there's only so many dollars they can dedicate to staff. right? Well, of course, people want to take lessons from the people that are watching online. And then they may find out that they're not the greatest teacher at teaching basics. They may be really good at styling, lady styling, footwork variations, musicality, but their quality of movement, when they teach, they're not necessarily able to get their point across and create, really strong foundational dancers. And that's what we're seeing. It's like, and a lot of the top trending pros right now, they don't have classes at home. They don't have a regular class at home. So they're not necessarily seeing the ramification of their words because they're going to events and working with people who already know how to dance quite often. And this is, again, not a dig. It's just the way of the world. And they're so busy traveling. They're like, I don't know if I'm going to be home. It would be hard to keep a consistent class going, whatever. But going back to your question, and I know I went off on a tangent, but I think they're all related, is that I hope that the new teachers out there, they're like, oh, I want to be a teacher now, that they do follow a particular method for their basics and they believe in it. And you can alter it a little bit if you want, but use it as a guideline. Giving advice to all of you teachers out there. I never had an ego when it came to figuring out how something worked. Today, I feel like instructors go into a class and they say something that they've heard from someone else, but they don't own it in their heart. And so they don't really know how to explain it. And the people didn't go there to take from that particular instructor to hear what somebody else said about the dance, because primarily they went there because they like that person's dancing and learn how to dance more like that person, and then they're parroting somebody that they heard on their journey getting there, and they're not creating that look for the people who are paying them for the lesson. So the advice that I would give teachers out there would be to take the time to go, you know what, I'm teaching this pattern and someone asks a question. You know what, hang on a minute. Let me dance that a couple of times. Here's what I do, because it's what they do that makes them uniquely them. And so don't ever feel like, you're under the gun or you're being challenged when people ask you a question like that. I would say dance it a couple of times and explain it exactly the way you are doing it, because they're there to take from you. They want to dance like you. That's the reason why they're in your class. They like your dancing, or they wouldn't be there.
So when someone goes and takes a lesson from Jordan and Tatiana, it's because they want to look like Jordan, a little bit more like him, and like Tatiana.
I would think so. And you guys, in the comment section, you're welcome to say that's not why I go, but I would hope that's why. Right. They're going over taking that workshop from somebody else.
Like with business, you're going to see, depending on the industry, and this is just a general overview of business, if you go to one retail store like Walmart compared to a grocery store like H-E-B, it's a different flavor, and that's kind of similar. You can look at dance in that regard, and dance couples and dance instructors. There is a lot that goes into consideration in our classes that we teach on a weekly basis, and the reason why I know that is because for 12 years I've studied under Damon, had that realization of just how intensive and
intentional
and intentional the approach that D'Amico Dance has in the marketplace and offering dance lessons to students in the Houston area and globally. That's our aspiration, to bring our methodology to the world. There is a methodology. Could you explain a little bit about your methodology and how you develop that over time? I know you briefly mentioned the trial and error aspect of it, but what distinguishes you from someone else that's teaching?
That's a good question. And you don't have to choose my methodology, obviously. You can choose whoever you want. I'm just saying find one and use that as a basis for your...
And stick to it.
Right, and so you're building dancers, and you have a consistent product until they reach a higher level, and then they start to express themselves and become completely different dancers than the same person that was in that beginner class with them. I think that I was at an advantage because I was trained in ballroom, American Smooth and Rhythm, International Standard, and Latin, and I studied under some really, really good people. I think I was able to take that knowledge, and there's such a history of apples to apples when it comes to this is what's perceived to be good and technical, right? So it was like it wasn't just a free-for-all the way things kind of are today in the more social dance styles. But even when I was coming up with the likes of Wayne and Charlotte Bott and the Schwimmers and people like that who had waves of dancers that went through, they consistently created good dancers. And it's like, and those dancers came up, and back in the day, the dancers were proud to be a part of someone's tutelage. They were proud to be a part of the Swimmers or Wayne and Charlotte Bott or right?
They have a proven system.
There was a system, and so people were systematically learning how to dance well, and the quality of movement was there. They knew how to use their feet. They knew how to use their body and where it came from, and all that stuff, instead of it just being by accident. Because when it's by accident, you don't necessarily know how to teach it. So what kind of product are you creating if you don't know where it came from? And so I think that really altered, along with in the previous episode, me, realizing how important it was, the brain to body connection was. So all of my teaching started going that direction. And more than anything, I believe that God gave me the ability to understand dance physics than he did to even be a dancer. So I feel blessed in that regard. I can watch anybody do any move online, and in about 3 seconds, I can do that move, and I can break it down in a class. And so
That's
it's
amazing.
like, well, not pat myself on the back. I appreciate that. But I believe that God gave me the ability to look at something and figure out how it works when it comes to dance, the physicality of dance. I would hope that other instructors are doing the same. They're like, oh, you know what? He moved his hip right there. He straightened his leg right there. He drove off of his foot right there. That's why that looks so strong, or that's why that styling looks that particular way. Oh, he didn't drop his heel to the ground right there. Or watching a girl do something. She took her hip first, then her torso swung her head under faster than her body had head swing, whatever. So being able to pick up on the nuance, and then in teaching, going into a lesson, recognizing ahead of time which parts are going to be problematic, so that you're not wasting your class time on things that they should be able to get through based on what level class they're in, and you can leave the bulk of the class for those problem areas that you foresaw that. You saw that before the class ever happened. So I know where people are going to have a hard time, and try to spend extra time, on those spots. Be careful what you choose to teach in your workshop before you arrive. So it's a guideline, but you may have to change that based on the skill level of the people that show up at your class. Sometimes when I visit other people's classes, I don't necessarily see that. And that's okay. What I had to be okay with is that by and large, people will go to somebody's class and leave without being able to do what they taught and still believe it was a great class. And I'm just here to say, that's not a great class. That's not a great class. And you can say what you want. I don't care. That's not a great class. You paid for it. You're supposed to leave with something tangible. So if the information is completely over the top of the students' heads, that's not a great class. Now you can appreciate their delivery. You can appreciate being in the room with them. You can be starstruck. You can be just so happy to be in their presence that you give them a hall pass, but you didn't get anything for your money other than a signed autograph or whatever. And so when I teach a class, when you teach a class, because you've taught for me many, many times, and you taught at Wild West for years with 100 people on a very crowded dance floor with brand new people, experienced people, hecklers. I mean, you name it. And you subscribed to that method. And we were getting 95 to 99% of the people in the room, brand new or not, leave with the sequence. They can do it when they leave the class. And no matter how intricate the movement is. And in my higher level classes, I would say that we hover around the same success rate, even with people who aren't really at that skill level, but within that class, they're going to be able to actually lead somebody through it, follow somebody through it, and that's a value that I always try to put out there, right? As far as my methodology for teaching is concerned, I think it starts with a strong foundation. I plan to do an online course on the elements of West Coast swing. I plan to do that same thing in two-step. We have a two-step online course that'll be coming out. The elements are what's important. Well, what are the elements? What's happening over each two-beat increment? We're talking about West Coast swing right now. What's happening over each two-beat increment? From the walk, how many variations at a basic level are there of the walk? Are you moving straight ahead? Are you prepping for a spin to the left? Are you prepping for rotation to the right from a J-hook lead or something along those lines? How many different 1-2s at a basic level are there so that the dancer goes, oh, I can categorize this two-beat increment, and it's going to be one of these 3-4 elements. And that goes into your 3 and 4, that goes into your anchor, that goes into your walk on your 5-6 of a whip. So it's like
a chain reaction.
It's a chain reaction. So I'm all about people learning the foundation and learning the foundation well, And as you know, in my beginner classes, I have higher level dancers that are in there all the time. About 30% or more of our beginner class, there's about 70 people in our beginner class this month, are intermediate/advanced dancers who want to hear the information again. And I remind them all the time, don't fake your stuff. This isn't the class for that. This isn't where you're going to fake your footwork acting like you're cool in a beginner class. We're going to go ahead and do our elements, build our foundation, and then we'll start to dive into that stuff in the intermediate and higher level classes. But I make people stick to their guns on what element they're choosing over each 2-beat increment, and then they can go from there as they earn that creative license and become, better, more skilled dancers.
Yes, with different variations and altering what they're trying to do to the different tempos of the music, and not just the tempos, but also the style of the music.
Yes.
There's a great benefit to having solid fundamentals and solid elements.
Advanced dancers are made in beginner class, and that, no matter what, no matter what. That's where advanced dancers are made. Advanced dancers are not made anywhere else.
Yeah, I fully believe that, just based on the 12 years that I took lessons with Damon pretty much every week consistently. I want to end this conversation with one last question. So on social media, we do post a lot of content on social media. We do notice comments, positive comments, negative comments, neutral, all over the place. How do we distinguish between an up-and-coming dancer with a seasoned veteran dancer, with a brand new dancer that has talent? Where do we draw the line between, are they an instructor, credibility? How should someone approach that? If there's a viewer out there that's, maybe they danced 20 years ago, or maybe this viewer thinking that's not the dance.
Oh,
Or,
I see where you're going now.
That's not two-step, or that's not West Coast. Where is the line drawn?
You trying to get me in trouble? You're always trying to get me in trouble.
All the time.
And I don't care about being in trouble. When any of you out there think you know more about two-step, I'll let you know. You know what I'm saying? There's not really anybody on this planet that knows more about the dance of two-step than me. And you can get in the comment section and be as ugly as you want and act like you know some stuff. I've done my homework, have you? And so now that I'm off of that tirade, I'll be a little less abrasive.
Sure.
There are so many different versions of what people think is two-step. And so if all you've ever known is what your dad did or your grandpa did or your community did, in your area, you're very bold to come online and say that what we're doing is not two-step, or what some 5-time world champion dancer, and you're coming in the comments and saying that's not two-step. It's because you're uneducated. I'm not dissing you. I'm just saying you're uneducated in the area. I would say that, you need to open your eyes to what's out there. And you need to be like, oh, wow, that's very interesting. That's what two-step has turned into, because that's what two-step has turned into. Yeah. And if you choose to dance, 3 or 4 patterns and have the time of your life, we're not hating on you. The haters in the comment section are hating on us. We're not hating on them for the version of two-step they're doing. They're being very bold to come out and say that what we're doing is not two-step, and what we're posting is not two-step. And they are mistaken. Obviously, it's done in 40 countries, and they're doing it the way we're teaching it, not understanding that that's where two-step has gone. Ballroom dancing has changed that way. Salsa dancing has changed that way. The way we play basketball, the way the baseball swing works, the way the golf swing works, has all changed over time. Technology has brought us together in a way that has allowed us to see what people are doing the same activity we're doing, but they didn't have the same information. And so it's like, to think that you have a bird's eye view without even looking of what's actually happened in these dance styles that we're doing without even looking, you're mistaken. And again, we're not hating on you. You're hating on us. So it's like, we don't mind. I mean, sometimes I get triggered. Sometimes you get triggered because people really act like they know. But I would love to have that conversation with you. We probably need to do a future episode on the history of two-step and where it came from, about what time it happened, how it came about, when the dance changed, why it changed to lend itself to the cooler patterns that we're doing. Because there's a rhyme and a reason why the dance changed into what it is today. Same thing with West Coast Swing, and not to repeat what we talked about in the last episode, but West Coast Swing is still West Coast Swing, and modern swing is still West Coast Swing.
Coast Swing.
It's very high level, and those people have earned creative license. Now, what we see is some of the up and coming generation, to touch on what we talked about earlier, is that they skipped over a strong foundation, but they had the natural ability to do what these highest level pros are doing. But it's visible in their foot action. It's visible in their quality of movement. So while they're being rewarded, which is not the dancer's fault, they don't have a clipboard in their hand. This is a completely different discussion that we need to have. The judges need to be more righteous about what they're rewarding, because they could be the detriment of the sport if they're not careful. And some people say, oh, you can't say that about judges. Yes, I can. What are you even thinking? Yes, I can. I can say that because I think there needs to be more accountability. I have been an event director. I have been a judge at the highest level. And I think that that's a conversation that needs to be had. The event directors need to be more in tune with what they believe the dance should be like. That's a conversation that should be had with their chief judge, and that chief judge should then pass down that information as to what should be rewarding in each division, so that we maintain the quality of the dance, and people who are skirting by on talent and they're great showmen are not being rewarded over someone who may be a more complete package, because they're taking the lessons and they understand how to move through space. And it's like, wow, the quality is so completely different. They're not shuffling their feet around on every step they're taking. Their arm line's not funny. They're not hunched over when they're doing it. And then they're being hyper musical, and then they're winning over someone who was also hyper musical, who maybe didn't quite have the same it factor, but had better quality of movement, and it's like, so we need to figure out, well, what each bucket, when we're talking about judging these dance styles, we're rewarding, and how, what percentage of their overall score is in each bucket, category. In each category. You know what I'm saying? If we don't do something about rewarding the overall best dancers instead of just the ones that are the most showy, you're killing West Coast Swing or two-step or salsa or whatever dance we're talking about as a business. And if it wasn't for the grassroots movement of the instructors that are teaching masses of people to dance, the dance would not be thriving the way it is, because the highest level pros right now are too busy to have that kind of rapport and that kind of impact on the local community. How many bodies are they actually putting in the community? So they are putting bodies in the community, but it's through people going, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen, I want to do it, but they're not necessarily teaching the masses to dance. It's the grassroots movement, the hometown instructors that take an interest in creating a community that are adding the most of the bodies in the dance community. It's not the pro dancers out there. Now, what I am noticing is how many more of them are doing online courses and stuff like that. So I think that's fantastic, because now people can see their methods where they haven't really been able to do that by attending one workshop at a dance event somewhere. So I'm really excited about all of the folks out there right now, the highest level pros out there, doing these online courses, because we're going to get to actually hear their methodology.
Damon, thank you so much. That was packed full of information. Hope you found some value in that episode here. And like, subscribe, share this with someone you think needs to hear it. And again, watch episode 1 and episode 2 of our new YouTube show called Swing to the Rhythm. Take care.
Thank y'all for watching. Appreciate it. Before I dive into that, I do want to take a minute just to thank you. Being a business owner, being a dancer for a long time, doing this for forever, and having you come on board about 12 years ago, you have such an inside view of D'Amico dance, and an inside view of what's in my heart and my passion for teaching masses of people to dance. So just to hear you say that, because this was not scripted, so just to hear you say that and describe the business just really warms my heart, and I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.